Well, first of all, Governor Sarah Sanders, thank you for sitting down. I know you're not officially governor yet, but I am taking the liberty of getting used to calling you governor all the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
As opposed to other names that we've probably called each other over the years. No, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
You bet.
This is going to be historic. When you're sworn in, you're going to be the first mom governor of the state of Arkansas, because you're the first female governor of the state of Arkansas, the first child of a previous governor of the state of Arkansas, and the first back-to-back Republican governor since Reconstruction. Which of those firsts mean the most to you?
Oh, one more I'm going to add to the
Yeah, go
list,
ahead.
only because I'm trying to claim my youthfulness as long as possible. But I will also be the youngest governor in the country when sworn in. But,
Does that one mean more to you than the other ones?
no, but I'm happy with less gray hair. But I'm pretty sure after the first session that will change pretty drastically. But look, I think all of the firsts are, historic and amazing and humbling and exciting. And it's an amazing time in a way to be in Arkansas and get to be part of that. But the history I'm hoping to make isn't for anything on that list, but the things that I think we're going to achieve for the state of Arkansas. I am very hopeful that we can do transformational things over the course of my time as governor, and that's why I ran. Not to check boxes or make history with being the first woman or youngest, but over what I think that we can accomplish here for the state.
I'll just put you down as that all of them are important to you. How about that?
That's fair.
Well, let's dive straight into some policy. Education, your number one issue. That means school choice, parental rights. There's lots of different ways you can define that. I want you to tell me what that framework looks like from a policy perspective for you.
So I spent a lot of time over the 2 years on the campaign talking about education. I've made no secret that it's my number one priority in this first legislative session. Released what we call the Arkansas Learns Initiative that focuses on some big priority areas, and now working with our partners in the legislature to build those out and execute. The first thing in Learns, it's not just a fun catchphrase, but it actually stands for something. Literacy being the very first, and I think one of the most pivotal parts of education, and something, frankly, our state is not delivering on. Right now, only about 35% of Arkansas third graders are reading at or above a third grade reading level. And we know that if a kid is not hitting that critical benchmark by that point, that we're setting them up for failure. And to me, that's unacceptable.
So what are you going to do differently on that front? Are you going to invest more money in after school and summer programs? Are you going to put more money into tutors and teachers that can help accelerate that? Because you say that 35% level, really like the best in the country is only around 40%.
Yeah.
So everybody is suffering in terms of every state.
And that's true, and I want Arkansas to be the example of how we do it right. I want other states to look at us and be envious of the way that we have course corrected and improved those numbers. There are several things that I think we can do in this space. One is expanding access to pre-K across the state, making sure that more kids have a foundation at an earlier age helps put them on a better pathway long term. I also think providing things and working with hard-hit schools in some of the more low-income areas, providing reading coaches and things like that. I saw firsthand the difference that it makes to have somebody who's trained in the science of reading and understands what to look for, how to correct it, and putting that kid on a pathway long term. So there are some things that are big and are going to take a bit more of a lift, and then there are some things that are smaller, making sure our teachers have the resources and training they need to be successful is a big part of that puzzle.
That's going to have a price tag. Do you have any early indication of how much you're willing to spend in that area?
We're already spending 54% of our state budget goes to education. We should demand better results with the money that we're spending. We cannot continue to pour money into programs that aren't delivering. We have to take an assessment of everything we're doing, determine what's not working, and reallocate that money to things that we know and are proven to work and deliver the results, frankly, that our students and our families deserve.
So will the first year be more assessing what's going on? Because this is the legislative session to put some things in motion. So how do you assess but also legislate at the same time if you don't know what you're assessing? So.
Well, there are some things we already know and that we can look at, and there are already funding programs that exist that will allow us to do some of these things. And so I feel pretty confident that we can make some of the changes in this first session to improve numbers moving forward.
All right, let's talk about education savings accounts, voucher, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different names for it, but you want parents to have more choices for their kids going to school. public school, charter school, private school, homeschool, virtual school, learning pods. I mean, there's a million of them I've been learning through all the research there. One of the things that's being discussed is allowing that money that we spend at the public school level per student to move with the students anywhere. Do you support that?
You know, one of the, and I only got to the first letter in LEARNS, but the second part is empowerment. And that is putting the decision-making power in the hands of the parents instead of in the hands of bureaucrats. I think that's really important. We have to make sure that parents have a lot more power about deciding how and where their child is best educated. You have more than one kid. I have 3 kids myself. All three, I know, that's what I said, we have 3 kids. I know that each one of my kids learns very differently. I know that they each need different things, they have different personalities, and so what works for one may not work for another. And so knowing that I have the ability to make decisions about what is best for each of my kids is really important, and frankly, it's my responsibility. And so making sure that we are empowering parents to make those decisions is going to be a priority for my administration.
But so to the money question though, does the money follow the student? Is that going to be something you advocate?
I think there are different ways that we can break it down. I certainly think having education accounts that give some flexibility to parents, but we've got to work with our partners in the legislature. As much as I would love to make all the decisions all by myself, that's unfortunately not how it works. But I do think that we have a great start and great people and coalitions that we're going to be able to work with to deliver.
But your preference is going to be important to those legislators. I think Senator Bart
hope
Hester's
so.
already told everybody we're going to do whatever Sarah tells us to do.
I
don't think it'll be that easy.
Let's see if I hope that it stays true, that we get to do that all the way through the entire session. In fact, if I can get a copy of that recorded, I'll be happy to play it for all the members regularly and let them know that you sent it over.
I bet we could probably find that. So again, I mean, I just want to make sure I'm clear. You're not opposed to the money following the students.
I'm not opposed to parents having the ability to spend their taxpayer dollars on the best education possible for their kids.
All right, teacher pay be another big education issue. It's probably one of your acronym words there. So S for salaries, maybe.
A for accountability.
Okay.
I think empowering our teachers, making sure we're rewarding the hardworking teachers of Arkansas is important. I've been pretty public that I support the teacher pay increases, and I think
you have
that's
a dollar
something.
amount in mind?
Again, I think
else?
that's something that we have to work through with the legislature, but absolutely has to be on the table and will be part of any education package I put forward.
Are there any states that you're looking at specifically that you see have some model programs that you want to borrow from? Arizona and Florida would be 2 that might come to mind based on the appointments you've made to your chief of staff and your education secretary.
You know, one of the great things about being a governor versus being in Congress or in the Senate is that there is a much greater sense of collaboration between governors. There's a much better sense of sharing best practices. So I look forward to stealing things that are working from all 49 other states. There's no reason that if we see that something is working somewhere else and it's applicable to Arkansas, that we shouldn't try to look at those programs and implement them here.
We've seen this in the legislature the last couple of times around. I think we will see more of what I call the culture wars, and I think education will be a big place where we may see some culture wars. In Florida, for instance, you've seen the Don't Say Gay legislation, which is I think the acronym of or the moniker for the opponents of that. Are we going to have that type of culture war in education here in Arkansas in this next session?
I would be surprised if there weren't some pieces of that during this session.
Will you be opposing it?
I'd have to know specifically, I'm sorry, what you're talking about. That piece of legislation, I would sign that. I've already said publicly that I would. I obviously disagree with the way that they've characterized it, since it doesn't say that anywhere in the legislation.
Right.
But anytime I think we have an opportunity as a government to do our part in protecting kids, we need to take advantage of that and do what we can to make sure that we are doing everything within our power to protect the young people in Arkansas.
I think you've just guaranteed it's coming to your desk, so we'll see. Let's turn our attention to criminal justice reform, another big area, another place where you've laid out some policies and proposals. First of all, there's going to be a new prison built, maybe up to 1,000 beds, although again, Senator Hester said maybe 3,000 is more. I'll let you tell me what you're comfortable with, but for sure 1,000 beds. That's going to be up to $100 million. You think we need to spend more on more prison beds than just 1,000?
I hope not. Certainly we have a capacity issue. One of the big concerns is that we have to make sure that we are not letting violent repeat offenders back into our communities. I certainly don't want them living in my neighborhood or in anybody else's around the state's neighborhood. And we need to make sure that we are doing a better job of protecting our communities. Right now, I mean, you live in Little Rock, you know that that is not the case of what is happening right here in our capital city. We have to do a better job. Would I love for that demand not to exist? Absolutely. I don't think there's anybody that finds this to be a fun and exciting thing, but unfortunately, it's the reality of where we are. We are at max capacity, and we have to make sure that we can secure our communities. I also think we can do a much better job on truth in sentencing, and that has to be part of the legislative package as well. In addition to the capacity problem, is making sure people are held accountable and that there is actually justice and time is served that they are sentenced to in the state of Arkansas. That is not typically the case right now. I also think that there are some other things in rehabilitation and mental health, workforce development that we can do much better than we are, and I think that those will be other things you'll see us tackle in this session.
Let's dive down into some of that, unpack a little bit of that. So truth in sentencing, for instance. It is about making people serve longer sentences because they are serving maybe as little as 30% of their sentences right now. If you're not rehabilitating them, though, is it just for the punishment aspect of it? Is it just...
Well, that's why I said the mental health and the rehabilitation and the workforce development piece need to be part of that as well.
Do you have something that you're already formulating in that? Are you having conversations with potential legislators about legislation on that front? Can you share a little bit more where you kind of expect to put resources and more money?
Certainly talking to members of the legislature as well as the Attorney General, who I know has made public safety a big part of his platform when running for office. I think there will be great partnership, and I think there can be some bipartisan support. At the end of the day, everyone wants safer cities and a safer state, and so I do think that there's some work that can be done where you can bring a lot of the stakeholders and players to the table.
The governor will have the power to invoke the Emergency Powers Act. I think over the last 3 years, from the statistics I've looked at, I think almost 4,300 folks have been let out on early parole. That means they were within a year of getting eligible for parole anyway. Are you going to put an end to that Emergency Powers Act, or will you, because it's going to take a while to build a 1,000-bed prison or a 3,000-bed multiple prisons or whatever. How are you going to handle the prison overcrowding problem with the fact that you're going to have to do something for some relief?
Yeah, I think we have to look at some short-term solutions because certainly the capacity issue and building a prison doesn't happen overnight. Okay. We didn't get here overnight. We're not going to fix that problem instantly. We have to look for some long-term solutions. I think that's addressing the capacity issue. That's some of that rehabilitation component, that's your long term, but you have to look at some short-term solutions as well. And what that looks like, I think all ideas have to be on the table.
Do you have any ideas?
I have, and when I'm ready to make that announcement, maybe you'll be the first I tell.
You can't even give me a hint of what that might be right now? Give
Look,
me one.
We've seen some, where you have to, I don't want to let people out on the streets that need to be locked up. And so if that means that we have to use space in other places, in other states, then that may be something that we look at.
Speed of the justice system is another component of this that I don't think gets talked about enough. I mean, I know of a business that was broken into. The offender that was arrested had 8 previous breaking and entering charges over an 8-month period, so literally once a month. Still hadn't gone to trial from the very first breaking and entering after committing his 8th offense. How do you speed justice up but preserve justice not being sped up too much? I mean, but I think that's a big problem, is you've got somebody out on bail, they've committed a crime. What do you do?
And that's one of the things that we've been looking at, is how you make this process move a lot quicker. And I think working with members in the justice community and working with the legislature is going to be key to doing that. I think it's something that everyone realizes is a problem, and now we got to work towards fixing it.
Is there any data that you're looking at specifically that helps you, I guess, drives you to make some of these decisions?
We look at data every day.
Well, what are you looking at, though, in that criminal justice space? Because I've tried to get some of that information, and it's hard to find.
It can be hard to find. I think one of the things we're looking at is just sheer numbers. Right now, we have a little over 16,000 beds in the state of Arkansas. We have well north of 17,000 people that need to be in our prison system. And that math just doesn't add up. I mean, that is a very easy data point to look at and realize that we have to do something different than what we're doing right now.
Shift our gears to income taxes. You have, I guess you've voiced wanting a responsible approach to continuing to lower.
I think a responsible approach across the board is usually a pretty good thing to take. Whether it's taxes or anything else, Roby, it's usually a pretty good way to start.
I've seen some pretty quick decision making that goes on here, so we'll see. I'll keep that one in the back of my pocket there. There's going to be some legislators though that are going to advocate moving quicker than you might be more comfortable with. I could see somebody proposing a flat income tax rate that's extremely low. We've had multiple proposals to eliminate or completely lower or more completely lower the used car tax. Those have big price tags to them. How are you going to slow down legislators that want to go faster than you want to go on income tax reduction?
Look, as long as we can get there responsibly, speed does not determine whether or not it's responsible. Making sure that we can pay for the programs and services that we need to pay for, that's being responsible. So if we are able to grow our economy, grow our revenue through increased tourism and things like that, then we can pass that on faster. Making sure that we have programs that are effective, efficient, modernizing our government, passing those savings on. It's not going to be any one thing that allows us to cut taxes. It's going to be a collection of things, and the faster we grow our economy, the faster we're going to be able to phase out that state income tax.
I'm going to play devil's advocate with you on this tax equation problem here. You've got, kind of your three-legged stool of taxes in Arkansas, your property taxes, which are local. You've got sales tax, generates a lot of general state revenue, and the income tax does the rest on the state revenue side, leaving out all of the special revenue stuff. You start to eliminate the individual income tax and the corporate income tax completely, which is, I don't think anybody's going to complain about that, but now you're leaving Arkansas with less channels for revenue at that point. If you get to that point of eliminating the income tax, you're completely relying on the sales tax. Is that not concerning to you that you could be, it's a much more volatile tax?
I think we're kind of at a point where we have Texas on one side, we have Tennessee on the other side, we have other states surrounding us that are moving in this direction. If Arkansas wants to be competitive, if we want our businesses that exist here to be able to grow and expand, if we want new business to come in, it's not something we just want to do, it's something that we're going to have to do, is make sure that we are looking for ways to phase out that state income tax. Like I said, I don't think it's something that happens overnight, but it is a goal that we have to work towards, and I do think it's something we can get to if we get serious and focused on actually accomplishing it.
One of your first moves in office will be probably get to name a highway commissioner and probably get to name a PSC commissioner. Those will be two really big appointments. I know you're not going to tell me who you're planning on appointing. So.
It's not you, Roby. What does that help? I narrowed the list down. Now we only have like 2.9999.
I want to be on the jail review facilities committee. So have you been having conversations about who you might put into those positions? Are you prepared to make those decisions pretty early in your administration?
Absolutely. They're critical positions, and we'll be ready on day one to name those appointments.
All right. I got to ask you one national question, because as we sit down, we're in the middle of I know you're much happier to be in Arkansas than Washington, D.C.
For so many reasons.
A lot of reasons there. So some of this may play out by the time this airs, but who is the leader of the National Republican Party right now? It's not Kevin McCarthy. I'll answer that part of the question for you. Is it Mitch McConnell? Is it Donald Trump? Is it someone? Who is the leader of the Republican Party right now, in your estimation?
I think there are a lot of influential voices in the Republican Party, and it can vary. I don't think there's any one singular leader. I think that happens when you don't have a president in power from your party. Is that voice can come from a lot of different places. I certainly think Kevin McCarthy has one of the biggest microphones in the country. Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, some governors across the country. Those are people that right now have some of the biggest microphones. But anytime you don't have a president in power, you see that, I think, divided up. But there are a lot of influential voices in our party. I think the more important thing is figuring out how we bring those groups together and remember what we're fighting for, remember who we're fighting for, and start delivering on a lot of the things that most of us talked about.
good luck with that unification process there. I'm not sure.
I didn't say it was going to
wouldn't
be
wanna
easy. I said we'd
wouldn't
be
wanna
better off.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
be responsible for that with either
Yeah.
political party, quite frankly. Governor Sanders, thank you so much for sitting down. I look forward to covering your administration over the next few years.
Absolutely.
And anytime, this chair is always waiting for you.
Great. Thanks,
All
Robbie.
right, thank you.